It is what it is. All right. So, but obviously, it's so crazy, right? Who would have ever thought that a Tobias Harris trade would ultimately knock Anthony Davis out of the primary NBA conversation? And that is pretty much what has happened. But we didn't forget Anthony. We
No.
didn't forget him. And so Books was saying, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, there's a couple things to consider about this Anthony Davis potential trade to the Lakers. And one of the things that he mentioned, he talked about um, a lot of people don't realize how good Chris Bosh was with the
Hmm.
Raptors from a numbers standpoint and where he was viewed overall in the power rankings or the list of big men in the league. When he was with the Raptors, you could have made the argument, the strong argument that Chris Bosh was the best young big man in the league. You could have said that, and I don't think anyone who knew the game would have been able to say you're crazy. That there's no way. Like if from the 05-06 season to the 08-09, I'm sorry, no, to the 09-2010 season, which is his last year with the Raptors, Chris Bosh never averaged less than 22 and a half points and 22.3 points, and he never grabbed fewer than 8.7 rebounds a game. He
It was
averaged
usually
over a
above
block.
that.
Yeah, and averaged over a block in all of those seasons. He shot he shot never shot less than 49% from the field. I mean, and was never a worse free throw shooter than 78.5%.
And
Okay.
low turnovers for a big guy with the ball in his hands that much.
Absolutely. Turnover rate was never lower, was never higher than two. Well, he averaged 3 turnovers a game, but that was when he was 21 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is what it is. So I bring Bosh up because one of the things that we talked about, or books mentioned, was people are saying, will LeBron turn Anthony Davis into Chris Bosh? Into
With
what Chris
respect also to what happened with Kevin Love.
Yes, into what Chris Bosh became and what even Kevin Love became, right? So I got the first response to that, right? My first response to that is, I sure hope so. And I say that to say, because what other people thought of Chris Bosh during the Miami Heat time was totally different than what I thought of Chris Bosh at
Yeah.
the I never for once thought that Chris Bosh fell off or that Chris Bosh wasn't still capable of putting up those same types of numbers that he did with the Raptors. Chris Bosh made a conscious and logical and smart sacrifice for what we all say we want from players.
Hmm.
We all say we want players to be selfless and to, give up their selves for the greater good of the team. I mean, we saw in the 90s and the late 80s, we saw guys do that all the time. You guys don't, if you think that Isaiah Thomas couldn't have averaged 30 points a game if he wanted to, then you don't
Right.
know basketball.
Right.
Isaiah Thomas
100%.
could have
He's a
scored
monster.
30 points a game.
He was a
I,
monster.
I'm and people get mad and they think I'm crazy when I say this, but Isaiah Thomas could have put up better numbers than Allen Iverson if he had shot that much
Hmm.
because he was a better shooter than Allen Iverson. He was probably just as quick. Arms wasn't quite as long, but from a pure offensive standpoint and from a scoring standpoint, he could get buckets.
I
But
don't
he
think he was
did
as quick, but he was a much better ball handler, which gave him better change of direction, which, six in
it's
one hand, half dozen in the other.
a quicker Kyrie
Yeah,
into a
yeah,
degree,
for sure, for
you
sure.
know,
Especially at that time.
especially at that time. So
Hmm.
I feel like he could have done that, right? But he didn't do that because that wasn't what was best for Detroit
He
winning.
let everybody eat.
He let everybody eat. And that's important. And I think Chris Bosh was smart enough to say that and to do that. And he was a humongous reason why they went to 4 straight NBA finals.
Oh yeah, he became a better defensive player, which was a huge
Absolutely.
sacrifice. Is to like some people say that like they want to focus more on the defensive end. He actually did it,
Yes.
And the thing that I think that he doesn't get a lot of rewards for is that there were times where LeBron and Dwayne Wade, for one reason or another, weren't their best, and Chris Bosh those times would just step up and get 32 points for you.
And remind you.
Yes,
And
I'm still
remind you.
this good.
I'm still
I can
that
still do
dude.
this. All that having been said, I don't think that that would happen to Anthony Davis, and here's why. Chris Bosh and Kevin Love were both ball in my hands kind of players. They both like to post up. Chris Bosh more of a face up, post up guy, but still like to get the ball in his hands and make a play. Anthony Davis is much, much better than both of those guys at the Sean Marion game.
Hmm.
He's going to get you 15 points just by being in the right place at the right time and being more athletic and more talented than everybody around him. And so from a numbers standpoint, I don't think his numbers would take the same visual hit, the
Hmm.
obvious hit that Bosch's numbers took, particularly from the scoring standpoint. And even more so, I think the kind of game that LeBron complements very well is Anthony Davis's game. We discussed this last week a little bit. Anthony Davis is a super role player, right?
Hmm.
What if you took an MVP and gave him a role player's game, or vice versa, a role player and gave him MVP level talent? That's Anthony Davis. He can do everything, but he doesn't have a go-to move. He's not Kobe Bryant. He doesn't go to his spots and kill you. He's not James Harden, right? He scores from anywhere and everywhere. And LeBron James would utilize that, I think, more so than he would with Chris Bosh, where Chris Bosh wasn't such a strong inside finisher that he could just throw oops to him all day. He wasn't such a strong cutter that he was always a danger as soon as you took your eyes off of him. That's Anthony Davis's game. He has a lot of that in his game. Chris Bosh became a great catch and shoot guy in Miami,
He did.
but they also had to give the ball to Dwayne Wade a lot too.
Hmm.
And without a Dwayne Wade type player in LA, if they don't acquire a player like that needs a whole bunch of touches, I think Anthony Davis would look more like himself than either Kevin Love or Chris Bosh. I don't think you'd see a whole lot of him just standing around playing catch and shoot and, figuring it out on defense.
You want to know what Anthony Davis playing with LeBron looks like? Anthony Davis playing with LeBron looks like LeBron was given a hybrid between Clint Capella and Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. That's exact. Now,
And Anderson Varejao. And I know some people that think that's crazy and take it as an insult, but no, I think it's fantastic when an MVP caliber player has Varejao type qualities.
mhm,
Uh, Prime Anderson Varejao in Cleveland was annoying. He was
yes.
a problem, and he made a lot of plays. And I think Anthony Davis brings that to the table for LeBron. I think he gets in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really like the Capella hybrid with Chris Bosh because I think he does a little bit of both of
He
well, a
does.
lot of what both of them do. Clint Capella is probably the best rim runner in the league right now. I think Anthony Davis could be that if he played on a team where he didn't have to score as much as he does from every other situation. But because of his range on his jump shot, then now he becomes a little like Bosh as well because
Hmm.
Bosh played that stretch five role with Miami because he gave the middle to Dwayne Wade and LeBron unless something was wrong and they needed to go to him on the block where he could prove he could still face up and be a force there. I think that Anthony Davis can be both of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that from a statistical standpoint, you start to look at him averaging 22 and 13, 22 and 14. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like if you had a guy who's rim running like Capella, knocking down jump shots almost to the clip that Chris Bosh is knocking them down. And then also blocking shots in the middle like JaVale McGee and Tyson Chandler.
And defending the pick and roll, which is the
And
most important
defending
thing.
the pick and roll, which is and something that Clint Capella does great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that Bosh could do as well. So I mean,
And running the pick and roll, which is I think the thing. I think
yeah,
LeBron and Davis in the pick and roll is probably the hardest to defend pick and roll that I
ever
can think of.
that I can think of because you
Yeah.
have superior vision, superior size,
It's the
and
size.
and the versatility. But I think it's not just the size; it's the size with all of those skills included.
100%. But the reason I say it's the size is because very, 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 very few teams. I think off the top of my head, Oklahoma City is probably the only team that I can think of, and Golden State are the only two teams I can think of that have two people that could defend that pick and roll, even in theory.
Mm-hmm.
Even in theory, because you need to be able to guard the perimeter and guard at the rim. So you need size, athleticism, defensive effort, and defensive intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Only Paul George and Jeremy Grant and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green would I even conceive of doing anything with that pick and roll. I think everybody else just gets eaten alive completely for free.
Yeah, I think Steven Adams' issue in that might be the foot speed.
No, I said Jeremy Grant.
No,
Steven Adams
I know. I'm
guard.
thinking Steven Adams, and Steven Adams being bigger than Jeremy Grant may be able to plug
And
into
Jeremy
that.
Grant's super long and athletic, so I
Yeah,
think he can help out just fine. I don't
yeah,
think that would be a
yeah.
problem.
But the thing of it is that Jeremy Grant, they could still do that. I'm trying to think of naturally who would Jeremy Grant be guarding in that
He'd be guarding
situation.
AD.
He's
He'd
going
be
to be guarding AD.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
That,
it's
though, and that's just in theory, like as a starting point. Everybody else, I'm looking at the rest of the league, and I'm like, y'all, the rest of y'all, good luck.